What is up, DG Army Netherwood, also known as John, back with more patch videos for you. I wanted to a couple people asked me to see the tier 8 and tier 9 mediums, tell them what I thought of them. So I decided to get back on the test server and do these mediums. Now, as far as I know, the medium line didn't change, at least as far as I think it's 121 is concerned. That's the tier 10 medium. It didn't go up or down or tier, so I didn't think there was much change needed or explanation needed there. I've already done that tier 10 video. But yeah, I haven't done the tier 8 or 9 mediums, and I don't think like I said, I don't think the tech tree changed around a lot. I'm not sure. But the really interesting thing with this tier 9, what is this thing called? The WZ-120? It has two top guns that are very different from one another. This is the most senior top gun. It actually has a really long reload like a heavy. It's 5 rounds per minute, and but it's got an amazing penetration value, just like a heavy gun as well. At well, if I'd stop zooming in and out, I could show you. Hold on a sec. 257 pen, 440 damage. This is kind of like this is pretty much the tier 10 gun. Bam, you're dead. It's on the Chinese heavy tank. And I think the armor is even similar. I was looking at the armor of this value of this tank. I really love this tank. It's very mobile, and this gun really makes it just a pretty amazing beast. I'm going to talk about it, mainly the gun in this video. I'm showing you two games. They're basically the games with the two different guns. But the tank overall, very mobile, nice, really nice traverse. It could do with a little bit stronger of an engine, but that might just make it overpowered. And also, since patch 8 for physics, mobility has dropped for really all tanks, I think, and that's, I think, a lot to do with the differences to terrain and how it interacts with your tracks now. I think tanks were more mobile before with their it's really been more of a nerf to acceleration. So I'm coming around the corner. With this gun with the 257 pen, what I really like about it is you don't really have to aim very much, and when you're trying to do flank maneuvers and you're trying to just pop out and jack someone up real quick, you kind of don't have time to aim as much as you would like with a heavy, and you can just sit out there and soak up some damage. This tank has 1650 hit points, which I think the tier 9 heavy Chinese has 17 or 1800. So there's really not a lot of difference with as far as hit points, which I think is really weird. Since it feels like these tanks have similar armor, it's kind of odd to me. And see here, I'm not really aiming. Boom! Right through the front plate. This gun is amazing, and this is why I love this tank. I think it's better than the heavy. I don't know. Maybe I think it's because it's got better mobility, but it's got a lot of other similar features. Almost same hit points. When you're talking about 200 hit points, that's not enough to make a difference, really. So, to me, this is a great. This is better than the heavy tank. I think it can be a heavy better than the heavy. So here I'm just kind of sniping with it. When you need a brawl, this is the kind of gun you want. The gun that can go through the front, you know, of other tanks. You don't have to flank with it. And a lot more with the higher tiers, it's harder to flank and not get just instantly killed, because a lot more people hang back and stuff. They're not as aggressive in the higher tiers. Now, if you have a wolf pack of medium tanks, it's a lot easier to flank and stuff because you have support, and you're basically splitting up all the shots between the three of you, and that can work really well. And typically in a random battle, there's not going to be as many aggressive players, so it becomes very hard to flank, because if you try to flank, everybody on the enemy team who's basically playing lots of defense, like these two guys, will just sit there and shoot at you until you die. Now, if I turn this corner by myself, those guys that were already pulled back will just focus fire me down. So it makes it really hard to flank because these maps are so small. In real warfare, you wouldn't need to flank within 100 meters. You flank by like a mile or something, or maybe 2 miles. So again, boom, not having to aim in very close. I love that about this game, not having to zoom in, or love that about this gun. So again, the reload is fairly long, even with a rammer, but it doesn't matter because boom, right through the turret right there. Just awesome little gun. That's what I love about this gun. Now I'm going to show you the other gun too, which has a slightly lower pen. I'm going to zoom in here just because he's giving me all day. Takes out my track there. Let's see where I'm getting shot at. Looks like lower plate a couple times. These guys are actually aiming in, and a front plate, top plate a couple times. Now, IS-4 armor, obviously you're going to have to aim a little better. But still, with other mediums, even when you don't aim on lower pinned guns, you can bounce a lot. So, again, this tank is very awesome. I basically just helped push that whole thing, that whole flank, with this freaking gun. Like, the only bad thing is the reload speed, but it's not that bad because a lot of times you can't just go boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean? You need to take your time. So, all right, let's get some in-plate action on that game real quick. So here's the first plate to that game. Really awesome game, actually. Master Badge, first class, which doesn't really matter a lot because it's on test server. Sorry, I'm still sick, actually, a little bit. 1650-point game, really awesome. Killed that T-62A and damaged 5 other tanks. Really awesome. I could be really aggressive with this tank because the gun is so awesome, and it's still got the really nice armor and stuff that the higher tiers have. I got top XP on this tank, really because with that gun I don't have to aim. I can definitely shoot and get behind cover pretty quickly, or try to flank and not have to aim while I'm circling a guy, which I really can't stand. And last plate, 15 shots fired, 9 direct hits, really because I was missing a lot. Probably a lot of those shots were at that first T-62A. This gun's not super accurate, which is like a lot of other guns, but you know, that's fine. A lot of other Russian guns. 3,100 or 3,200 damage on a 1,650-point tank. Pretty good, pretty nice. I think this gun is amazing. I love this tank. So let's look at some stats real quick, though. I already talked about the hit points. 600 horsepower engine pushing 37 tons. Now that's where, with an 850 horsepower engine or so, then this thing could have really great mobility. It's a little bit slow for a high tier, quote-unquote, Russian medium tank, which is basically what the Chinese are. 56 speed limit, really nice speed you can get once you get that tank moving up to speed. Now here's the awesome traverse, 46 on the tracks, which is amazing, and 42 on the turret for combined almost 90 right there. Really awesome traverse. 100 hull armor with that at that high angle like that is really good. Remember the heavies for the same tier only have 120, so it's basically almost as good as the heavy armor. 220 on the front turret, just like a lot of other Russian mediums. Really awesome tank. 390 view range, 750 signal range. I think this tier 9 medium tank is a better heavy tank than the tier 9 heavy tank, because it's got the mobility and it's got the huge gun. I would pick this over this is a better medium and a better heavy in my opinion because it's so versatile. Versatile, whichever way you want to say that. Versatile. So anyway, that's what I think about this tank. Let's get the small gun real quick though. Hold on. Alright, so here's the small gun. Let's look at the penetration and stuff before I start zooming in. 215 pen, 320 damage. Now the reload on this thing is way faster. It's almost 8 rounds per minute. So the 215 pen obviously means this is pretty much a flanking gun. And 300, what is it? Is it 3 something damage? 320 damage is still pretty awesome for a flanking gun. It's still an amazing gun, and this is what typically gun you have on most of these high tier mediums. Now, again, like I said, it's very hard to flank in these tanks on these smaller maps. So I don't think this gun is as good. And you can see the reload speed, pretty fast, nice reload speed. But I think a lot of that's because these tier 9s now just are not. It's not the same as the T-54 was back in the day when the T-54 was the dominator because it could flank really easily. The reason that is because there are so many tier 10s now in the game that the tier 9s are just they're really not as good anymore because they're not the top dogs of their tier, and they're not, you know, a tier 10 heavy used to be like a huge deal, was a big powerhouse in the game, and now it's just not that way anymore. And the tier 9 mediums and stuff are not really big powerhouses because look how low on the list I am. There's so many better tanks than what I have. Now the tier 10 is a little better, but it's still hard to flank because there's so much damage being output by so many tier 10s flying around, and also like those tier 10 tank destroyers that pop you for 1,000 damage. I mean, you just get killed fast now in these higher tier games, where you can't flank, take a couple hits, and then you're behind enemy lines, screwing stuff up. It's more like flank, boom, 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 you're dead. So I don't know. And I think the game is a little more campy because of these larger caliber TDs. I kind of like the prior to 10 tier 10 games play a little bit better, at least in random battles. But maybe, you know, well, I know they can't do this really, but what they could have done, I mean, maybe they could still do it, I guess, is expand the map sizes. Make larger maps, redo their engine to allow for longer view ranges, possibly, or something. Even just larger maps without longer view ranges would be nice, so that there's more ability to flank with these mediums, because as it is, it's really hard to play a medium really well just because of that. Boom, nice hit on, excuse me, the 5916. I think that's, what is that thing? 5916? It doesn't tell me what tier it is. 5916. What's that guy's name? Volversion. So that's a tier 6 Chinese light tank. What I really haven't talked about much yet is that there's a split in this medium line, starting I think at like tier 6. It splits into Chinese mediums and Chinese lights up to tier 8. Then that tree merges back on this tier 9 medium. So the Chinese light tree so far is really just a few tanks in the high tier, which are really odd to play, and I couldn't get really good games in them. They're kind of scout tanks. You can play them kind of like a medium, but again, it's so hard to flank in this game and get into, you know, really advanced positions that I don't feel like the light tank, you know, positives being, you know, maneuverability and speed really benefit people a lot, because you basically have to scout and you can't really get in there and use your gun. I don't know, to me, I don't feel like there's a lot of use for that kind of stuff in the game as far as random battles are concerned, because again, most people are playing so defensively that by the time you scout, you're going to be spotted, you know, with so many people having 400-meter view ranges, and a lot of those big TDs having binocs on top of their huge view range. You're going to get spotted and you're going to get killed. So no amount of bushes really help. Now I don't play scouts a lot, so it could be because I don't scout a whole lot, but I don't know. I don't see a big need for tier 8 light tank with that's scouting. Now the T-71 American tier 7 light tank, I think there's a little more role for that, just because it's got the autoloader, so it can unload on unsuspecting targets and then get out of there. With the tier 8 light Chinese, you can't really kill a target fast enough to get away. You can still do it. I'm going to try to show you it a little bit, but it's not as viable as the T-71, I don't think. So getting some nice shots on the T-54, again, side armor for this gun. Starting to move in now that my team's actually getting a little more aggressive and advancing. This 268 seems to be AFK, but I think he's pretty much AFK. Not shooting at the fronts. Now, the speed on this thing is not good enough, I don't think, to flank. It's because of that 600 horsepower engine. I think the T-54 makes a much better flanking tank because it has a 20-to-1 power to weight ratio. This thing has more like 18, so it's not as good of a flanker, unless you never stop. If you don't stop, it can be okay. Again, flanking shots on this E4, really great for this gun. And the high reload speed helps to take out targets rather quickly, or shoot out a track, so you can start on a circle. As well with the tier 10s, it's a lot harder to track them. Their track hit points seem to be pretty high. I don't know, so it's a lot harder to take out tracks with one shot. It takes like 2 shots now, probably. Anyway, let's get the end plates for this game. So here's the first plate to that game. Not as great of a game. I've actually played this game. I played this tank multiple times before I got games I could really show. But so I got the Mastery Tier 2 with this game. Again, meaningless almost on the test server, but still, 1278 point game. A lot of how do you play this game with the smaller gun is it's more of like a support tank. You can see I damaged 5 guys. Let's look at the second plate here. Third on the list for XP, pretty good, and I think that's because I did get my shots off when I could. Again, you cannot be as aggressive, I think, with this smaller gun if you're not flanking. And it's, again, just difficult to do on maps. It's difficult to flank because you can't do it by yourself. You have to. It's really better if you wolfpack when you flank. For reasons I already discussed quite extensively. So, pretty nice little game, though, still. Again, I prefer the larger gun because flanking is harder to do. You still have the mobility, so if you guys do flank or whatever, you've got the gun that will help you if you can't flank, and it will still be fine if you do flank. So you can see 2,700 damage on a 1,650 point tank. Pretty awesome. 18 shots fired, only 9 hit. That's because I was pretty much sniping from so far away. 8 penetrations when I did hit. And a really nice little game. Made a lot of credits on this tank, which is really weird. Again, they're probably going to balance out the credits the last second like they always do. Let's look at, well, stats for this tank are obviously similar. Little less weight on the tank because of the smaller gun, which helps a little bit with flanking, but it's not much. It's like, I think, a ton. I'm not positive on that. So again, that's this tank, the WZ-120. I think it's a pretty sweet tank. Let me know what you think. This is probably the best of the new Chinese tanks, I feel, is the WZ-120. The 121 is okay. I just got killed in it a lot, I think, but it's also a very awesome tank. I think the medium line's the best new line for the Chinese, so let me know what you think. Later, guys.